Shree's on the beat.
We're starting over.
We're gonna start over with I was the youth pastor. That's it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let Sedette introduce herself again. To all those of you that have been watching, thank you for the text to let us know that we were having technical difficulties.
So they couldn't hear us?
I kind of I did something that I wasn't supposed to, but. You know what? Somebody actually said, "Hey, we can't hear." We can't hear you.
Okay.
But you know what? I love where we're gonna start because you know what I'm gonna do. I'm actually gonna start it right there when I re-show this broadcast on Thursday. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna start it with.
There's a lead up for that.
No, but I can put in caption. I can put stuff in, but it's just.
But I mean, like even
it's
too,
just
though,
so nice.
I know, but it's too bad though because we had these conversations. Like we missed the moment then, having the conversations about church and coming out and the influence and Caribbean and how the church element, and then all of a sudden we're like having these engaging conversations, and then we turn to Sedette, and then Sedette said, "What?" Exactly. So I think that context. That's why we all started laughing. So I'm so sorry everybody missed that moment.
But I'm gonna go back on that. I'm gonna let Sedette introduce herself again, right? And then we're gonna talk. I'm gonna talk about what got us to the church and all that stuff, right? So we can,
No pressure.
No pressure. All right.
Back to you, sister.
Back to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me calling on this show. My name is Sedette. I am a motivational speaker and edutainer. Absolutely love helping young people believe in their ability to make a difference in the world. And I use music, movement, and motivation to do that. And one way I believe that I am leading by example is being an openly queer woman talking about making a difference in the world without it being something that's so, oh my goodness, we're going to make a special place for this and we're only going to talk about queer rights and issues in Pride Month. I've become a person in the community that people see as Sedette. And that's how we all want to show up, living our authentic selves, living our truth, right? And so I show up and it's Sedette. Who is Sedette? Oh, she's the motivational speaker. She comes into schools. She talks about, being a better person for the world. What do you know about Sedette? Oh, well, Sedette, she has a fiance named Christina. She has 2 kids. She has a son that's living with autism. that's how kids talk about me.
Getting to know the person.
Getting to
Yep.
know the person.
I didn't even know you were part of the LGBTQ2s until you came in, and I'm like,
Yes.
okay, yes, you know, and right. I didn't
And
know
it's,
until
and that's really, this is how
Yeah.
life should be.
Yeah.
I hear you.
And
Right, you
I
really
believe this
need
is
to
the
know.
goal, right? This is a goal. You show up, you're living your truth. When we think of like cisgender people who live what society thinks is traditional, they don't walk into a room and go, by the way, I'm straight.
Yeah.
yeah.
By the way, I'm not, you know, they don't have to explain, but I feel like in the community, especially Black communities, because that's what we're talking about tonight, is that we feel like we have to explain ourselves.
Yes.
So now I'm here and I'm talking to your kids, and now I've got I have a fiance. Oh, what's his name? Her name is Christina.
And then
And then all of a sudden, if they go home, the child may not have been like, oh.
Yeah, just
But the-
But now when they go home and they were excited, oh my goodness, I met this person, her name is Saidat, and she's this, and she has a fiance named Christina. What?
they get focused on that.
What'd you say?
Not
Now
the
everything
message.
is out the window except my sexuality.
Right.
And this is the goal for, I guess for me, is I want to live so authentically that the people that I'm influenced are inspired to live their truth, whatever that truth is. But and also understanding that we don't understand other people's lived experiences.
Exactly.
But if we listen to understand, we're going to be better people. And I think that has to do with anything when we're talking about, you know, coming out, when we're talking about being inclusive, opening a space like you have tonight for us queer individuals, talking about living our lives authentically. And, you know, I think that's a good place to start.
I was feeling the heat for a moment because you started talking about the old, and prior to this, the conversations that you did here was the older people, and I'm part of that older generation, and I'm looking at them like, wait a minute, no, that's not me. And I think, you know, how we got to the churches me to saying that I came up, and coming from Jamaica, I had the homophobic tendencies. There's things I got involved in. I remember talking to Stephen a little while back and saying, you know, this is where I came from. One of the things that I said before that caused me to change was I was spit on in the bus. So I understood racism. And coming from Jamaica, again, you don't know racism, you know classism, but not racism. So I experienced racism firsthand. My daughter also, my firstborn, also put me on the path to a certain amount of change.
Good.
You mentioned something though that I want to pick up on, that you know you experienced in Jamaica there was more classism than there is racism, and when you came here you were expecting that classism, but you got the racism.
Actually, the one piece of racism in Jamaica was homophobia. It was so prevalent, right?
Yes.
It was so prevalent.
Yeah.
You know, we had. You can listen to the music.
Yeah.
There's music that's you know that was.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was like, it's still
Gay
Beanie
back
Man, I believe, is
Yeah,
still
we
having that
still-
issue.
yeah.
There was a few, but
The reason why I bring that up is I think that's, you know, it's the same thing. When I came out, and I don't know how you felt about this, but when I came out, it was, and I've heard this described by somebody else, you know, you physically can see that I'm Black, right?
Yes.
But unless I've got mannerisms, or I'm saying something, or I'm doing something, or I'm holding someone's hand, or something like that, you don't necessarily know. Now, some people aren't able to, and I think there's a term that kids use these days. I'm going to age myself here. I think it's cis-pass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got it,
Where you pass as a heterosexual male.
Oh, it's like passing.
Passing, yes.
Okay.
I've been told that, you know, I have, as we all do, we all live different experiences. So I've probably lived a different experience than someone who's maybe a lot more effeminate than me. So my point is that when you do come out, there's that kind of that duality of, coming out again as, I'm not just coming out as gay, but I'm coming out as gay and black.
Exactly.
And it's a weird thing to experience.
You're doing it twice.
It is.
Yeah. I don't know if that was your experience as well, or it was just like, you kind of have to re-identify, because when you do run into other black people, you'll get that look over, you'll get that. Like I played, we met each other, and I was playing at hip hop bars when when I moved to the city.
I know you from
way back in the day.
Way back in the day.
Yeah, I'm going to age myself again. So
but you realize when you age yourself, you age me as well too. So you're taking. But
hip hop bars. We're talking about that culture. Hip hop bars ingrain that. Hip hop music ingrains it, and we still hear homophobia in hip hop music nowadays.
If hip hop a little bit, not as much as reggae and dancehall did. There's not as much as reggae and dancehall, right? I'm a sound engineer. I've been on tours. I was on tour with Elephant Man when they brought him, and there was a write up in, I think we were about in either Edmonton or Calgary, and that show got stopped. And because of that show got stopped, there was a professor who came on, and he was part of the LGBTQ community, and he said blah 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 blah, and then that took down a whole slew of shows all the way across Canada, because he's coming across Canada tour.
Well, he's also had some pretty heavy stuff that he's said.
And I think that came for a song. And the only thing about it was that the song that they chose was about 12 years old, right?
Yeah.
And he did say, well, listen, I did this 12 years ago.
That's also too. Bishop Anton said the same thing. He doesn't sing. He basically said he's not singing some of the stuff that he sang when he was 18, 19 years old.
Yeah,
right.
As a grown man, he's even addressing that.
So
his mindset has changed.
There's been some change, but I'm not trying to get into that. I was just saying that I've seen it firsthand as being, like I said, and Beanie Man as well, because I was part of a tour that he got pulled as well. And I'm coming maybe even at that time I hadn't started to change yet, but I talked about my changing, and like I said, through my kids and through incidents, right, to where I am now. And I coming up from a church background. I think that's where we started to get into the church thing. Mom was Seventh-day Adventist, so when I came to Canada, every Saturday I was in church, right? But one of the things that I learned, and maybe it's because of who was giving the message, was also the loving aspect of our religion, the loving aspect, the aspect that said, judge not, let yourselves be judged, let the Father do what he is supposed to do, and we should live and let live. And I think that was more, as I said before, that was more New Testament than Old Testament. But
even too, though, because now I'm being the devil's advocate, I think I am, I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
But just even the fact that we're talking about religion, and then even too with dance hall, I know we're all topics all over the place, people, but we still have a common thread.
Yeah.
But just the fact that with dance hall and the music, because the dance hall wasn't only homophobic, but it's very sexual and derogatory when you think about it towards women.
Yep.
So we also got to look about that, like the misogyny.
There's a lot of other music too, but
other music. But you brought up that. You brought up those two genres, dance hall and reggae. So that's why I'm focusing on that.
Yes.
But that being said, then you just brought up religion. Right?
Yeah.
But then the fact is that then if with the idea of like homophobia and misogyny and inequity with women and all these other elements, shouldn't that also be shouldn't the church also influence the music and basically try to take away the idea of the misogyny, try to take away of the idea of the oppressing of the woman, and also those elements?
I mean, religious texts.
Right?
I'm going to get in trouble for saying
I
this.
know, but
religious texts tend to be a bit more on
looking
that.
at it a different lens. You see where I'm coming from, right?
I think and I'm going to.
Because people always hide behind the church, and then they focus on homophobia, but they're not focusing other elements of what the kids are listening.
And I'm going to say that's
like I'm not worried about homophobia. I'm worried about like guys are thinking that black women should just twerk and broke it so and do whatever, and then that's all they're known for. You know what I mean? And then also too, you're hypersexualizing black women, and also too, we also know the black women are not the ones who always been looked after. So we hyperfixated on the sexuality of the women, and we also know there's a stigma in that element with black women as well. So are we also perpetuating the idea of that as well? Like I know the idea of femininity and women taking liberty about who they are, their sexuality, but men have been doing it so long, and that's another element that we should be working on.
I think that's, and I think when to me, it's always been so kind of taking a
That's what I'm
grand
saying.
picture
Devil's
of it.
advocate.
Yeah.
All sides.
And I'm going to answer the devil in a minute.
Yeah.
I think
Go ahead.
so. I'm going to wrap it in two segments. So I think first of all, I think again, adults look at things and have interpretations.
Right.
You know. Whereas you give, and just this is about any religion, you give any text to any child and they will take it as what you give it to them as. Now, I do think that when we're speaking about the influence of popular culture on society in general, I always, and I say this to our representatives on the board, I always tend to look at this as you were you put it very eloquently, is exactly as I would say, which is, I put out there what I would like to see continue to happen, and I'm paraphrasing very simply, but I think that when it comes to popular culture, I've always looked at the music industry, because as a DJ, I've always looked at the music industry and thinking, sex sells, and whatever sells is what sells.
Right.
The conversations that we're talking about, when we're talking about misogyny, we're talking about homophobia, we're talking about racism, we're talking about, I'm going to be honest, I do not understand why in 2022 we have black artists dropping the N-bomb in any musical song at all. I really don't get that. I still don't understand why that's appropriate, why it's acceptable, and why anybody thinks it's a thing that we should grab onto and say that that's ours. It's not. It's ignorant and it sounds stupid. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion, but that's where I think that's just a small segment of that conversation that I think there needs to be that full conversation around in the black community around why do we allow this idea of black women in society being idolized or sexualized for having bigger assets than anybody else, or why do we think that it's appropriate for black women to straighten their hair and make their hair look more white, as some people have claimed. There's a lot of conversations that adults need to have, but then when we get back to the kids, it gets down to the idea of what's best for you as a parent and as a teacher, because I have family who's teaching, and the society has drastically changed from when we were growing up, from when I was growing up, to what is acceptable as a teacher to do, to not do, to be able to step in and say and not say, and what steps are expected to be taken when a child does come to you and says, I have these feelings, I have these concerns, I have these thoughts, and I have a religion, or I have a background, or I have a family member that is saying these thoughts and these things to me. As a teacher, I don't know what you would do. Like I've experienced
It's
it.
listening to the student.
Yeah.
Everything is you listen to the student to make sure they're safe. And then you talk to the students and say, does your parents know? What do you want me to do? Do you feel safe at home? And those are the conversations. You get to know the student, and it's always like that. It's student safety, and when a student does approach you, because when a student does approach you, then it's like they're trusting you, and that's you're being the advocate. But it's just listening to the student and knowing and asking questions, and then saying, what would you like me to do? Not trying to fix it. What do you feel good about?
And that's, I think, where I think that's where even like my generation is having trouble handling that, both as parents and as teachers. Not just asking, but as you said, and as you said earlier, listening.
Yes.
And not jumping to the conclusion of, well, this is what I think you should be doing, whether it's my prejudice because of my religion or because I'm part of the community. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Some in our community, and this has been stated on the right quite heavily, especially if you watch American news, that there is a push on the left to make parents and make the school system really ingrain themselves into this community. And sometimes at a young age, that's not necessarily the best option. As you said, listen, right? Let them express what they're saying. So there's so much when it's not just about religion. It's just it's about that personal belief and how you were brought up. As you said, you were brought up from Jamaica, and that comes from a different background entirely.
Yeah,
so
that's a cultural element.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think nowadays there's such a switch in parenting. My parents had it harder, right? There was a rigid way that they were expected to conduct themselves, right? I grew up a lot with my grandparents. I could not be, they could not be my friend
Yes.
I am my,
Yeah.
I am my kids.
I'm not your
I think we all
friend.
heard that. I'm not your friend. I'm not your little
So-
friend.
I think along the way when we start, and this is not in defense of my generation and older.
It's an
but I think
understanding.
in a-
It's just-
I think,
yeah.
I
It's
think
just an
what-
awareness.
I
Yeah.
think it's when you start to look at a lot in my generation, right? You got to also look how they were brought up. And yes, you know what? I consider myself a product of unique circumstances. My mom was open, right? We never discussed politics or anything, so I don't know, but I like to believe she was open, just in how, things she tried to show me. My mindset was always a little different, right? I wasn't a popular kid. I think I got more popular as I started to play ball and DJ, but
Right.
I wasn't a popular kid, so I read a lot. Still read a lot to this very day. My openness comes also from the fact that my mom is Guyanese. I've lived in Guyana, I've lived in Jamaica. When we first came here, lived in the States as well. Had a played ball a lot in the States. Right. So I've been able to be exposed to a few things. So I didn't just get killed with the
One-dimensional.
one-dimensional.
Piece of
And
growing up.
maybe what would happen if I was in a traditional environment and my father was around and he was a West Indian, that could have.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes I think maybe sometimes I think it hindered me, and then sometimes I think it saved me because that generation, and Jamaica is an ignorant place, right? So we've also got to look and see, whereas when we start to say the parents, and they're wrong and all that, and are they wrong? Yeah, you know what? They're wrong, right? There are things that they did wrong, but you also have to understand exactly where they're coming from before you, so that you can, likewise, they're not used, my generation isn't used to being
Well, our
friends.
parents. Well, also too, we have to look about our parents. We never. This is what I remember reading, that when we were growing up, we weren't allowed to talk back to our parents.
Yep.
Yeah.
We were trained, and I think too. So that's another generation from been brought down, that we weren't allowed to we couldn't challenge, and then that piece there is that then it was kind of like conditioning us. Then when we had to be a part of the white world, then we don't want to challenge anything because we never
Because our parents, but once again, our parents didn't know any better.
Well,
No,
I-
and I understand. I'm not. Okay, I know the parents didn't know better, so we all know that. So okay, I'm not dissing my parents or whatever. I know they didn't know better,
So
but I'm
it's
just
a
showing. I'm just trying to show. I'm just trying to analyze our community. That's all I'm doing. I'm just.
I will say though,
analyzing.
I this is just me personally.
Yeah.
I tend to look at things and think, is it a black thing or is it a society thing? And I think so my father's white, right? So I wasn't raised by a black mother. My black mother left. So when I hear somebody say, well, the conditioning is because you were raised to be in a white world. There are things that we all grew up with to understand, to be raised in the white world, but I tend to think that your background and your ignorance comes from wherever you're coming from, right? Wherever
exactly.
the parents are coming from, and I think.
So I was talking. I'm referring more about having a Caribbean or African parent. Like I think.
Oh, that background.
That's
Yeah.
okay. So
Okay,
so I'm not
yeah.
talking about like with you having a white dad is going to be different than I have a Bayesian dad and a Trini mom.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
And the thing is, even if they say put this away or this whatever, and you try to even have a debate,
Yep.
you're not allowed to talk back.
Yep.
Yeah.
So everybody will. Right? And if you talk back, we knew that there was something,
Consequence.
there was some form of consequence.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to say is that it took a while for a lot of us to find our voice, to
Yes.
basically start challenging the status quo, the social system, and and just the world of oppression. Because
We are so
we
used-
used to like
we're
not
so
to
used
say
to being-
anything, we don't ruffle any feathers, and also too, when things started happening, we didn't want to ruffle any feathers. Like if we were just quiet, if we just blend in,
Yes.
everything will be fine. But then we still know there's a lot of
Do you
oppression
see
in the
that?
system.
Do you
Right.
see? I
Right,
see
that's what I'm
this.
talking about.
I
Right.
see this generation
Oh, they
being
talk.
a lot. I was going to say.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They talk. We know.
And I,
Okay, go ahead,
coming
sorry.
from a traditional background, right? I had so much trouble because my daughter's a lawyer, right?
Okay. Yep.
God bless her. She's a lawyer. She just
Yes.
she just got her official
Just pass the bar.
Bar.
Yeah, she,
Yeah.
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 No, well, she graduated 2 years. She graduated, right?
Yep.
2 years ago. But now
The other part, yeah.
they only had the graduation last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last week, Thursday.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
First time. So I got
Congratulations.
0 pounds.
So did she challenge you?
Oh man, so coming from a traditional background, and this girl is lip incorporated.
I
Right?
need to meet her.
And she said what she tries to tell me is, and we,
Yes,
she
good.
says, and I said she's me on steroids, right? So there's all kinds of trouble because this girl would talk to me. This girl would talk to me so much, get me so mad that I
You had to walk away. So you had to shake her head.
No, I
and
just
walk
have to
away.
punish her because so I just give her and now they keep me taped. Yes, I gave her the big beat down just because
That was fun, yeah.
she and I know why she's a lawyer, man. She could tell me some stuff, right?
Right, yeah.
So, that the generation, and it took me all this to take her in, and because I was going to be her friend at some point, I had to learn how to mellow out, right?
And not, I create that challenge.
I do wonder,
Yes.
being a teacher, I do wonder, because my stepmother, so is my father's wife, she's a teacher, and she's expressed to me some of the things that surprise me. So I do wonder, as we're talking about, the consequences and growing up, and our generation having a better understanding of sometimes being able to hold your tongue, but also that does have a negative effect as well. The punishments seem to be removed from schools, so the ability for those consequences to be put into effect. So if somebody does, harm another student, my understanding is some of those consequences have been removed. And I'm wondering if as an educator, if some of those abilities may be being put back into place with some changes would be better, or if it's serving the student population in a better format at this point.
Well, it is for high school. It depends. Like I know, because everything there's policies and changes. So now they're looking about the elements about who the student is, what was the situation, right?
Yes.
But also too, now they're looking at data, and they're also realizing that the students who get punished more are Black and Indigenous students.
Yes.
Right? So then that's another element. So again, even to the white students would say, yeah, my friend Jamal, I'm doing a stereotypical name, whatever, so I know that. We were both vaping. I got away with it, and he got suspended.
Yep.
And the kids, so even the white kids even noticed that there is a distinction between discipline,
Yes.
the actions and consequences. And I think too, it's a lot of times I think too, with principals and VPs, there's so much layers of their work. It's not how it was 30 years ago or 20 years ago, where you're trying to do instructional piece, you have the mental health, you have to, timetable, there's all these other elements that a lot of times sending a student down to the office is just more or less the student is sitting there for a good while, and then why are we taking the student away from education, so it's also too is that it's very complex, and I feel like they should have more VPs in schools, and I believe that now I'm going on this tangent, and the class sizes should be also smaller to also manage,
accommodate,
to also meet the needs of the students, because a lot of times if you have a class of 32, you're not going to have an opportunity to get to know all the students.
Correct,
right? So that's another element. I have an opportunity to build relationships, but also too, it's also knowing that the kids are going to make mistakes. Like I had one student that called me, the B word, right? And I would be like, okay, I got you. All right. And then she stormed off. I didn't send her to the office. She stormed off, right? And then the next day, I was like, are you ready now? Are you ready to learn? Are you ready? Because I will show you next time if I am. Because I didn't send her to the office, but she knew that I was like, she's just having a moment, not to take things personally.
Right.
That's another element, not to take things personally. A lot of times these kids are, their parents, you never know what's conditions are at home.
Yep.
You never know what happened on the bus. Because
Yep.
I remember when I was growing up, I was dealing with racism on the bus, you know what I mean? And I was the only Black girl on the bus, and I had to get into fights with white guys and white girls all the time to defend myself. So you don't know what's happening. Then you get to school, you're gonna have a chip on your shoulder. Because, you know what I mean? So those are the elements. So a lot of times you just talk to the students and get to know them. So I think it's just the idea of like discipline, I'm gonna like push back on that, because then a lot of times there's bias that you're only disciplining certain students, and that's the data that we need to also look at.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea that the point that you're pointing out, because you mentioned this before about when an individual, as we're talking about, when young individuals come out, they need to feel comfortable.
Oh yeah.
With you. You know, we're getting into slight politics here, but that smaller class or size that we keep hearing about from all the parties and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That really does matter. It really does have an impact, because that gives you that opportunity to get to know them, and then actually have that interaction. So yeah, it's. I was just wondering, because it's one of those, as I said, it is a multifaceted, multi-tiered situation.
It's a social system. It's a construct, and it's a status quo that will still continue to oppress, and then also people will still be able to continue doing whatever they think they're doing right, and not also putting their biases in check. So now I think I heard, or what's happening is that now they're actually recording data to look about the consequences.
Yes.
Because again, if you have if your school only has 30% of blacks and 99% of them are the ones being suspended, and the other kids, whatever, that is a huge issue.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I
and it
also
seems
look
to be
at.
reflecting in, you know, as we talk about society and other things that we won't get into. But yeah, so I definitely understand that. Yeah. Sorry, I was just kind of hijacked that. I was just curious.
That's a good question.
You
That's
know,
good.
and and some of those questions are going to lead to other topics, because a lot of our topics are so organic because they come out of the conversation.
No, I love it.
That we have, and we have the queen of the organic topics here.
I know, sorry. It's just because it's like how everything just connects. Like, it's like, you know, life is not simple. And it's just interesting that we have to like acknowledge that. So my question would be to you guys is like, what advice would you give to young students? Because I'm thinking about students now, because that's the next generation. And what advice would you give to parents who, you know, have teenagers? You know, young, you know, like that element too.
I'll go to say that.
I haven't heard so that in
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah.
I feel like
That's why.
That's why.
You know what I did. That's why. You know what I did. A hard pause. There you go. Okay. There you go.
No, I think I love to think of the hope. There are parents who are ready to listen.
Yes.
Now, not every person is ready for the conversation, but there are some, right? And so I think parents need to be aware of what their children are going through. If they're a little more quiet, when you're always asking like questions like, when are you gonna get a boyfriend, girlfriend, and watch the energy seep out of them. You know, if you're aware of that, then you're like, okay, I need to be a little mindful of what's going on in their life. If they're not able to really share things about their lived experience, they're not sharing who their friends are, they're not really talking to you about their, the shows they watch, things like that. Yeah, of course, some kids are just going to be quiet. But sometimes this is an indicator that there's something they would like to express, but they may not feel safe to do so. Sometimes parents have to start the conversation. Hey, I don't know what you're experiencing in life right now. I just want you to know that I accept you for who you are and everything you are. So if you ever want to come to me to talk to me about anything, I'm here for you. There's no judgment. Because if we initiate that, then at least they know, okay, I could possibly talk to them. I may not right now, but I know that there's an open door, right? And even parents, being mindful to just say, I'm going to make mistakes. Because maybe there will be a child that goes, I'm telling you that I am this.
And then
I believe
expectations of their parents.
Yeah, I believe I identify as this. And the parent may not understand. Well, instead of
give some grace.
Of course, parents are going to want to save the day, or they're going to get really overwhelmed. Like, okay, I may not understand what you're going through right now, but I want to learn. That's a good place to start. I don't understand, but I want to learn. Because then the child feels safer. And yeah, you're going to, and the parent needs support. They're going to need to look for the support, because they're going to be mad if they have these ingrained ideas of what their child should be. they're going to have opinions. They're going to have people in their life that are going to say, are you sure that's what your kid needs to do? You're supporting that. They're going to have that pressure just like every parent does for whatever situation. So they need to find their own support as well. Because parents should not do it alone. And parents should not feel like they have to have it all together. And I think that's what we do as adults.
Yes.
We got to have it all together. We got to
always
know
have to fix it.
everything.
No,
And it's like,
exactly.
no, you don't know. And if you grew up a certain way, you were making mistakes.
Yep.
I grew up in a very strict Christian home. And when I came out, it was not fun. And I had my own ideas. Even the person I'm with today, she told me she was a lesbian, and the first thing I said is, I'm not judging you, but God can change you. We jokingly say, well, who did God change? Right? But that was my first response. I'm not judging you. See, I'm thinking, I'm not judging you. I'm a child of God. I love everyone. But, right?
Wow.
And so even when we bring religion or even our ideas, we go, oh no, everybody's accepted, but it's just not for me. We're still rejecting. We're still saying, yeah, but you're wrong. But I'm just not going to show you that you're wrong, but I'll tell you it's not for me.
I think your point of
Right,
like
so-
the parents, find support. I think that's so poignant.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to remember. You won't, as a parent, have all the answers to everything, and you will want to come in as the Superman or Superwoman or whatever, to come in and save the day. And 100%. And the last thing I'll mention is with regards to teenagers, is I think that keep in mind is when you are coming out as a teenager and you're dealing with these thoughts, you do need to remember that you still have quite a bit of life, that you're going to still figure yourself out.
Exactly.
And you shouldn't have, just like the parents, you shouldn't have an answer and you won't have an answer right away.
You're evolving.
You're evolving. I dated, as I told you earlier, I dated a guy in high school, but I also dated girls in high school because I didn't necessarily want to commit myself fully. Even though I was out in public in school, I didn't, which it's a weird scenario, but I didn't want to commit fully to saying, no, I'm gay. So I was bisexual for a while. So, and that can happen. You can still...
There's different stages,
Absolutely.
transitions, and also too, you're evolving. Because it's not black and white, right?
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's that element. But even too, what you just said is that parents need support. But then my question then now is there support for black parents with LGBTQ kids in our community right now to have that support?
There is and there isn't.
See?
Right?
There you go. Because again, okay,
But I mean, I feel like, and I don't know if this is the devil's advocate, but we can say there's no support,
Right.
But there's really no excuse for us not to find support anymore because of social media. There may not be support here,
But it's unfortunate
there
that
are.
we can have it here. I think that's where it is.
But we gotta start somewhere.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, nobody else believes. Well, you know what?
Well, but
In
even this partnership
Yeah.
is that starting? Starting with EVUMN3 with Ween, we had the Black Excellence Awards, which was to my mind, and we attempted last year. To be frank, we attempted last year because our organization has had not the greatest history when it comes to recognizing Black History Month, as I was the first Black leader of the organization.
Yeah, I do have some questions, some issues with that.
The idea was to certainly ingratiate ourselves within the Black community and identify that the Black community is part of our community. But as you said, there's a lot there that does need to be kind of unpacked as we're talking about. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of unpacking, then there's the people that we haven't really truly addressed, and what to do and how to go about them, because there's that small percentage that are so in their own space, and the space that they're in, once again, it's like that old-fashioned kind of view, and it's that biblical point of view, and how they choose to interpret the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yes, that's I like how you said
was
that.
it how they?
Yes.
I'm saying again, how they choose to
Right.
interpret the Bible. And if they're in a community and they're surrounded by like-minded individuals, it takes a certain amount of strength on their part not to want to bend into the community point of view. We live in a day and age right now where people are being entrenched in their views in a certain way. Right?
They're in their corners.
There's a radicalism.
Yes.
You can even go so far.
You can find anything. It's confirmation bias. You can find anything to confirm. If you think the world is flat, you will find information. If you think the world is the shape of a star, you will find something.
But not only that, there's been a rise in and they've said it, there's been a rise in people not wanting to meet in the middle.
Yeah. There's a push to the extremes, the extreme left, the extreme right.
The extreme left and the extreme right have become more powerful. We've seen it in politics in the States. And forget the States, we're seeing it in politics in Canada more importantly. Right? There's been on London and other areas, there's been a rise in hate crimes, right? So we're seeing a hardening of people in a way. How does that affect, that young person coming out? Not even the young person. How does that affect anybody coming out nowadays? Because if you don't, if I'd be more scared sometimes nowadays, because if I'm not like, okay, I want to come out, but if I'm not sure about the who I'm coming out with, who I'm staying to, then I'm really, if I thought back then was bad, sometimes you see things coming, what goes around comes around, and you see that circle where we're seeing, like you said, the left and the right has made things extremely ignorant, right? One of the things I like to say is that one of the reasons Trump came about was because things got so off center that if I could say, okay, all right, I might, and I'm being figuratively, I could say, okay, I don't like the LGBTQ community, right? I didn't say, oh, burn them, beat them, anything. I just said I don't like. But you can't say that, right? And the reason you can't say that is because if you express that thought, somebody's going to kill you for it. Now, you didn't go to the extreme, right? You just said, I didn't like. Now, because you can't get that thought out, who are you going to talk to? You're going to want to talk to the extreme, because that's the guy that's going to give you the space to talk and not kill you for it.
I think that, so when we talk about, I've been a bit of a lightning rod in this organization's history so far. I think when we talk about specifically ideology, which I think is what we were speaking about, right versus left. There, over the past 20 years, since the 2000s, there certainly has been a push to recognize and identify that there needs to be recognition of progressive values. So things like gay marriage, that came around in Canada in 2005, I believe, recently in the States. But with every action, there's a reaction. There's a pendulum swing that does happen. So
Roe versus Wade.
So recently, there has been, and this has been the case for 40, 50 years. There's been, a push from both sides to really identify what it means to be either liberal or
you can't be safe in the middle. You gotta be. They're saying, okay, you better be this, because if you're not this, you're this. They're taking away those gray areas.
This is because of social media. Social media has definitely given the rise to the ability that your opinion, for lack of better words, matters. Because
you can hide on social media.
I mean, well, social media has given the ability for you to vocalize it out, and for everybody to, if they agree, share it, and it becomes a boom. And as well. Absolutely. And so that has unfortunately created a unique, like you used to hear a lot about Fox News being a kind of an echo chamber, MSNBC for people on the left. An echo chamber for those views. And now the internet has just kind of expanded that and allowed everybody, especially with the ability for content to be created. What I will say is, I think that there is a clear push when it comes to politics to have pragmatic, have a centrist view, because you end up getting caught with your pants down when you're on one side or the other. And in Canada, for example, we have on the far right, we've recently seen Poliev, I believe his name is, who has been very much on the right side of, on the right, I mean, like the hard right, of the trucker convoy and mask mandates and things like that. And on the left, we have people who've identified Trudeau as being somewhat of a more left-leaning individual than they would prefer to see it from a centrist individual. And you can point to things like, you know, we were talking about performative action, and I like to liken some of his wording, like womanhoods and things like that. I've heard him say things like that to some performative action and things that are not necessarily helpful, just there. So when it comes to the youth and kids and people growing up and dealing with this, it is a navigation that it's really hard to deal with. I think we all struggled with it in this last election, which I think it showed. 40%, yeah. So people were just disengaged from getting involved in these types of conversations.
And that's bad, because here's what I'm thinking with that, right? The left and right are willing to fight, but the middle guy is going to give up.
Well, that's how, sorry.
Well, you know, I really think that when we start thinking about the right and the left, we do forget about the middle.
And not only, but is the middle fight? Here's the thing: are the middle willing to fight as hard as now the guy on the right and the guy on the left? And that also poses problems for.
But I believe they are, because it becomes like, okay, like I see these two extremes, and I want to find out where is that middle ground. So they're actually searching a little bit more. Because when you have someone's like, this is right and that's all that's right, they're only focused on anybody, like you said, that's thinking about them. Whoever agrees with me, whoever believes the same way, I'm going that way and I'm not listening. This is all noise to me. You have somebody in the middle, they're like, I keep going back and forth and I'm just trying to figure this out. Why do they feel this way? Why does this person feel this way? When I came out, well, I didn't come out publicly for about 4 years after I came out to my circle of people. But I cried out to God and I said, I don't want to hurt like this. I really want to know what you say about this. Am I going to hell? Is this really what it is? And I was open to hearing if I was wrong. Somebody gave me a book, what the Bible says about homosexuality. And it was actually written by a priest. And he said, I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong. I'm going to tell you this is how you read the Bible. You either read it literally or you read it in context. You can't read it all. If you're reading it literal, then you can't say certain parts are in context. Right?
Cafeteria.
And so I was like, oh, okay. Here was someone who was basically saying, I'm not going to give you an opinion. I just want you to, we're going to take scripture and we're going to go into context and we're going to go into literal and then you decide. And this book, I feel, saved my life. And it was because someone decided to say, let's just have a conversation. And we're going to use something that's value to you. And I'm going to share what I've learned. So if we think about people who are homophobic, transphobic, mainly they're listening to whoever agrees with what they've learned.
To confirm
but if
beliefs.
we decide, okay, the people who are open to listening will somehow help the people who are not. Because we all change in our journey in life.
100%,
We all change. And so it's like, in 5 years, this person may be like this. My family, my Muslim dad was the person who was like, I don't get you, but I accept you. I expected him to reject me. My Christian mother was like, no way. I can't handle this. Within the years, she is now to the point where she's like, you know what? I don't get it. I don't get this friendship of yours. But I respect the fact that she loves you. This is huge for my mother, who was saying no. This is what the Bible says. I don't want to hear anything else. But now we've grown to a point where I can actually talk about my relationship.
That's part of that conversation,
Right?
as you're saying, from
And
from the
so-
far right to the
Yep.
coming to that middle because of the personal experience.
Yep.
Yep.
But like I said, I'm coming back to how society's getting now, how it's so forcing that left, right, and you to
Yep.
abandon the middle, because the middle are looking around and they don't have the supports that they used to. Before, middle used to be like everybody was trying to get to the middle. Now you're in the middle and you look around and there's the left and they're coming for you, and you don't feel supported enough in the middle.
I think as an adult right now, and I don't know how you feel about this, but as an adult right now, I don't necessarily feel attacked. I just feel like from the left that there is so many changes that are coming through that this new generation expects me to keep up with.
Yeah, so many changes without the supports. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right,
exactly,
without
like,
the knowledge.
Without the knowledge of the support. So they
Yeah.
always want to say, well, we need to change, we need to, like, for example, like, now they have de-streaming.
Yep.
But how much support are they giving teachers and time to process the de-streaming?
Yep.
It's like this kind of like, this is what we're going to do, but no supports, no resources, nothing.
Figure
to
it out.
support- Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're making all these changes, but not giving any time to process to actually go through that.
Yep.
Right? There's no accountability.
Yep.
And then they can take the accolades or have the accolades to say, oh, well, I did, check this
We've checked
box
it
and
off
checked it
and-
off.
yep.
But then all the people in the middle are struggling because they're trying to make the changes, they're trying to do whatever, but then they're having that.
That's what I said.
And that's where you're coming
that's
in.
where,
Yes.
that's where I was coming in. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I don't live in certain parts of the States, because it really is
Right.
one way or the other. We've seen a little bit of it in the last election in Canada, because we've had candidates here, and one of them in particular said there's been more. They've never seen the amount of outright hatred in the stuff than they see it now. And so I'm going back to now kids wanting to come out, right? I think.
But even too, I know you're focusing on the kids who want to come out,
any-
but
or anybody.
okay, yeah, or yeah,
Anybody,
no, but no, that's fine, yeah, because it's the next generation I'm worried about. So yes, like it is good for we need to focus about the kids coming out, but we also have to be mindful of the kids who don't want to come out, because sometimes they don't want to come out. Then we also have to have an understanding to look at the other part of like kids who need to support their friends who are not coming out or coming out. Because also too, that allyship, that's another element, because you're changing the social structure and having these conversations where a lot of times these kids are having these open, engaging conversations. So sometimes it's just not, like, I don't want people to think that, I don't want students to feel like you aren't who you are unless you come out. Because I don't want that either. Because
true.
I don't know, because again, right?
Yeah.
That's another element, again, devil's advocate. So then I don't want someone says, well, now we have these people, should I come out? And they're not ready. Like, if you're not ready, don't come out. Take that time. So
In
that's
fact-
what.
Yeah.
No,
In
but
fact-
I might talk about some-
but you keep, I have to interject because you keep saying to come out. But we have to be understanding there may be kids who don't want to come out yet because they're still going through mental health, social structure, something at home that they're still trying to process. So we need to just put a
Pin.
disclaimer in there, a disclaimer to say that yes, we want to support people who are coming out, but we also want to know that we're supporting people who are not ready, to also make sure that we have a safe, inclusive way to also support the ones who are quiet and silent.
Yeah.
That's what I'm just saying.
Yeah, and
I'm just saying.
And even though I think,
Yeah.
without saying it, when I say come out, I don't mean that it's coming out at your own time. You're not being forced to come out.
No, but I know that. But I know what you're saying. But I'm just trying
Gotta
to
make
tell the
sure-
audience to make sure. I remember, I'm talking about a teacher. I'm thinking about kids are going to be listening to this, and they're like, okay, now they're saying we come out because we're not our true selves. We're not our authentic selves. We're not whatever. So I don't want. Again, kids may take things literally.
And
so,
people go back in the closet.
Yes.
I've had
So that's what I'm
conversations.
trying to say. Yeah, that's
I will say, and
yeah,
that's
people
that's,
do go back.
That's
Then
also
again, they
that's,
check and then they go
yep.
back.
And like, I don't know about you, but I mean, I'll be frank. Every workplace I go into, I don't announce
Code
my
switching.
homosexuality. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I avoid talking about relationships. Now, as I've gotten older, I don't care. I'm married now, so it's kind of a conversation that just comes up, and I don't care. But when I was certainly in my 20s, and even in my early 30s, I did not want to bring up my relationship status because I didn't know how people were going to react, and I really didn't want to get into a long conversation or have a debate.
It's protecting your peace.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, as you said, as kids grow from kids to teens to adults, you know, we're working with, I won't mention them, but we're working with some organizations and partners that have straight out said to me, yeah, we have members in our organization that are a part of the community, but don't feel comfortable to come out in our workplace, even though we're supporting Pride. You know, so that is, as you said, that it has a massive impact, and you kind of do go back in the closet when you, depending on who you are, when you go to a new workplace, you go to a new place, and you don't want to identify yourself. So, yeah, there's a lot to it, and I'm really curious as to what students feel, and I think that may be a good idea.
Something that to really think about. Maybe that's something, the conversation. Like we always talk about student voice and community voice. Be interesting to, you know, and do it anonymously, like in a way, because we have to be mindful.
Send us your questions.
Exactly. But it'd be interesting for them to send the questions. Like hopefully when some of these kids or even parents are like, okay, you know what? They said some interesting things, or are, you know, there's some things that were, you know, controversial or contradicted. So these are the ways to have these engaging conversations, because nothing's going to happen if we don't talk about it.
Amen.
Which we appreciate you for doing this.
Let's go real talk. So I want final thoughts from
There you go.
everybody. I want final thoughts because you know what? I think we made up for the fact that we were silent. We were talking, but yes, we were silent.
They just saw some.
You did saw some movement. Like,
saw some attitude.
Right. Final thoughts. I'm gonna let you wait for your final thought. Hang on for a minute.
I didn't say my final thought.
Right.
I didn't say my final thought.
So now give me
good.
a final thought.
Well, my final thought is just knowing that you are needed in the world and that your difference makes a difference is the first step in getting to know your authentic self. I love saying authenticity because that's what we're all striving for. None of us want to hide who we really are. We want to be ourselves. We want to feel comfortable in our own skin. And so it's a journey. Life is a journey. You're not always going to have what you're going to be later on, but you're learning, you're growing, and you're bringing others along. So don't give up.
Yeah, I have to 100% agree. I think your message of hope is something that's incredibly important and needs to be remindful. People need to be reminded of that as well. I think that you know, when we as an organization, as Pride, we focus on being proud of who you are, and I think you should be proud regardless of whether or not you know who you are at this point.
Exactly.
That's good.
And it's important to really bring that out and embrace that 100%. And the last thing I'll mention is that, you know, life is a struggle that we all, you know, go through, and the support, as you mentioned and as you had mentioned earlier, the support that you have around you, whether it's your family, your friends, or therapists, or school teachers, educators, absolutely. There is a massive network out there that you just need to find, and representation is part of that. So even look for somebody that looks at you and looks like you, if that's what's, you know, most comfortable. But it's these conversations, and I think I thank you for that, because you know, it's individuals like yourself and yourself that have been able to continue to, you know, allow our children to really see their worth in this world. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
People, it's such a pleasure to have these conversations. This is what Real Talk, Straight Talk is all about, really truly having these conversations. We want to embrace our community. We also want our community to embrace us. We're trying to have a talk with you. So even though we're talking among ourselves, we're actually trying to have a talk with you. If you have something that you want to share with us, whether it be a thought, an opinion, let us know. We are on social media. You can catch us on Facebook. You can catch us on IG, Real Talk Straight Talk on IG, right? Send us a comment. We actually have our own platform. It's called evomm3.com. There, when you go to Evo TV, there's actually a little chat room. You can leave your comments there. part of us being in the community is that we are trying to invest in our community, and one of the ways that we're going to invest in our community is that we started a t-shirt drive. We're selling some t-shirts. It's called, I'm going to get one right now. Oh, here's what's coming in, so let me show you. I don't know, you're going to see this t-shirt. It might be a little, actually you got it right. Shine a light on Black excellence, right? Let me get the ladies to hold that. All right.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, shine a light on Black excellence. The thing about this T-shirt is
Represent.
part of the proceeds, $4 out of every T-shirt sale is going towards a drive to buy back-to-school essentials.
Nice.
We're going to get these back-to-school essential packs that we are actually going to give away free. One of the places that we're going to give it away is at the Up Like 7 community event that comes up on Labor Day Sunday. We're going to be there. EVOMN3 is going to be there. That's Up Like 7 on Clark Road. They have a community event where they give away free food. They have children's games. And they also have booths that are sponsored by Black businesses and Black organizations. Once again, that's Labor Day weekend. We're going to be giving away, like I said, back to school packs. You supporting our T-shirt drive goes to do just that.
How much are they?
T-shirts are $25. All right, $25 for a T-shirt.
And $4 goes to.
$4 goes towards the back to school kits, right? The rest of that goes to fund things like Real Talk, Straight Talk. We are a privately funded, but almost private. I got to give thanks to the people that actually have allowed us to develop. Pride has been there, RBC has been there, the Wayne Community Center has been there. We shoot at Angel over at the Fix Hair Salon, so big shout out to
Hi, Angel. Miss you.
Yeah, she's also one of our hosts on the podcast. And then we also shoot at Up Like 7 Barbershop. Put in the crew, they've been real good with us. We would have shot already at Paranite Bar and Grill, but because they're a restaurant that they can't guarantee that we're actually gonna be able to shoot in private and in peace. We're actually gonna do some. I'm going to reach back out to them because there are a couple of shows that we're actually going to tape, so maybe we're actually going to get to shoot at that location. I'm looking forward to some big shots to Jiggy and the crew. We also used to shoot with the ladies of Ollie, which is Ollie Commercial Interior Design. Yeah, I got that right. Our other sponsors are, who am I forgetting? Rhythm Movements Community Association. They've been bringing people in to listen to our podcast. They've been pushing us there in Ottawa. They have the Flow Seniors, and they also have Flow Fest coming up, I believe, on August the 2nd. Flow Fest? August 5th. August 5th, 6th, and 7th. Flow Fest, right? Flow Fest is coming up. Got to talk about the summer kickoff that's going on this Saturday. Did you put in the wrong one? That's a disclaimer. Yes, and people, yes, we do have to have a disclaimer.
Yes, this Saturday.
Yes.
Oh, the ladies of the
Soca Fitness.
Sweet and spicy. They're gonna be out there.
They're gonna be there.
They're gonna be out there. We're gonna
winding it up.
Right, we're gonna be out there. There's a brand new community group. Voice 360 for Men, yes. Voice of Men 360. They're gonna have their annual picnic on July 24th. It's gonna be at Springbank Park. It's a men's group meant to support men in these times. A lot of the things that they're gonna talk about is the mental health aspect of it.
That's good.
Vishram, I met you today. Great to meet you. We're going to try to do things here. I'm going to try to get you to do one of your podcasts here. Yeah, bring your podcast to EVOM3.com. I'm going to try to get some, you know what, people? I'm going to try to get that on here some more because, you know, sometimes I'm on Facebook, I see Sadat's doing this.
Sadat's doing everything.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Sadat's doing everything. So, you know what? I want it here. We want it here.
Let's do it.
That's it. We want it here. We do want to be, I can never say enough. Our goal is to be in this community, right? And I'm talking about London, Ontario. Big shouts to, so that also represents the Black London Network, right? You said there's only so many of you there now, but Black London Network is something that's needed. What we want to do is to be able to work with all community groups. With that being said, next week on our show, we're actually going to talk about the necessity of community groups, why they're truly necessary, not just in our community, but in all communities, right? So I believe this. Are you coming back? Are you back?
Yeah, if you want me to continue being the devil's advocate, I will be
We're gonna have
humbled
yes,
to,
no, but I bet
come
you to
by.
come back in a community aspect.
Oh.
Yeah, this is
Because
a,
that'll be different because it's like the school community and then the
Yes.
Black community and just being part of it.
We have Rose coming on.
Okay.
Rose.
yes.
I gotta talk
Yeah.
about Rose. Rose did have. She had our. What did she have on Thursday of last week? She had a job fair. Rose held a job fair. We're going to talk about how that turned out. We're also going to talk about all the other things she's doing in the community. On a different note, she has a beauty pageant coming up, I believe, on August the last Saturday in August is the tryout. So we're going to talk about all the things that she's doing. She's great for empowerment. She wants to empower people, make sure that we are able to get the jobs that we want. So big shouts to Rose. She's going to be on the show. Angel's going to be back on the show. She's going to talk about things that she's done as part of the Fix Inc. She also hosts the Sweet and Spicy Ladies.
Yeah,
she is
and she's supporting like the something with the AIDS community as well.
Yes,
like,
she's big. Yes. We've had Vim by and the other nurses that came by, and they talked a lot about HIV, and this has been through the work that Angel is doing in the community. So next week we get to be more community highlighting. We're gonna try to list as many community groups that we see out there. To all the community groups out there, one of the things that we want to do is at the start of all our shows, we want to talk about you. We want to talk about what you're doing.
Sharing the events.
We want to share your events.
Amplifying it.
So reach out to us. We are at evomm3.com. You can see us as Evo TV, Evolution. And that's the whole thing. This part is real talk, straight talk. Whatever you want, reach out to us because we're in your community, which is our community. So with that being said, we call this a Fade to Black. Thank you for taking part in Real Talk. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And for those
and thank you for your patience with the tech issue.
support.
But we're good.
We're good.
Shree's on the beat.